Good morning, campers. And it is indeed morning. It is 5 a.m. Woo! Yeah, I woke up at 4. Actually, I woke up at 1. Managed to get myself to go back to sleep, and then woke up at 4 and knew it was a lost cause because my back was hurting and just, yeah. So this is the third day in a row I've had to get up from 5 a.m. or earlier. I thought I'd gotten that fixed over the holiday, but evidently not. So I figured I would go ahead and do a review this morning. This was not on my goal sheet for January, but I bought these this weekend and I actually kind of like them. So we're going to go ahead and do a review on them because these are pretty darn budget friendly. So I would definitely call them that. And I don't have a lot of water-based markers to choose from other than, or budget friendly ones other than my Crayola and Rose Arts. So, anytime I can find a good water-based marker, I want to pass that on to you. These are going to be the Leisure Art brush tip markers. Before we get started, of course, I have all the fine print here. And let me zoom in a little. And let me see if I can fix the focus a little. There we go. Not going to go all through all these word for word. These will be in the description as usual. Goodness, let me get a drink before I get started. Let the class read ahead on me. All right. So, in a nutshell, no Leisure Arts has not asked me to review this. I purchased these on my own, and all other reviews I've done up to this point have been my own purchases. Nobody's asked me to actually review a product for them for free. If I give a price and I say, obviously, it's on Amazon or it's on Walmart, those are the prices that I see on the day of this review. Prices can change based on, I'm sure with Amazon, it's based on your purchase history, based on time of year, sales, it could be anything, new product come out. So it's really up to you to go and do your own research on the prices, depending on what time you look at this review, which I would recommend you do that regardless because, hey, mistakes can be made on my part. I am not infallible. I try to be consistent with color and type when I'm comparing markers to markers, but they may not be exactly the same because color varies greatly based on brand. Boy, you can tell I just got up, huh? And I'm not forcing myself to do this. I actually want to do it. It's just my brain hasn't quite caught up with my mouth, it seems. Or my mouth hasn't caught up with my brain. That's probably the more accurate assessment. I try to give an honest and thorough review of each product and note the pros and cons. I try very, very, very hard not to just say this product sucks. I do try to give the pros and cons, even if it's something that I'm not particularly happy with, because everybody has different needs and what doesn't work for me may work for someone else. And I don't want to be negative about a product unless it's something that I believe can be fixable and would benefit a lot of people. And I'll get to that in a minute. I'll mention my personal picks and which ones I enjoy using the most. However, that doesn't mean it's necessarily the best choice for you. Everybody's needs are different. You may hate water-based markers, so don't run out and buy these just because I like them or whatever, is basically what that says. You may not even need water-based markers. Just take my review as a grain of salt, see if you can find other reviews, and through that, in your own investigations, make your own purchase decisions. Keep in mind, a lot of times the best bargain when it comes to coloring or art is the product you love to use the most, really. Buying a cheaper pack of markers and never using them isn't really cost effective if you're never going to use them. Thus, investing in an expensive brand, but you're too scared to use them. So that's kind of where that comes from. If I put an Amazon link, I'm an Amazon affiliate. If you purchase product through that link, I'll get a referral bonus of just like a few cents. It doesn't change the price of the product, and whatever I do usually goes, well, it goes back into the channel, and it has so far. So hopefully one of my next color and chats will actually involve one of the books I purchased from the very first set of funds I received. So without further ado, let's get cracking. These are the Leisure Arts. I don't know why I just wrote art. I think I was tired of looking at these last night for swatching. There's a reason I don't swatch things like I should. Okay, so these are the Leisure Art brush tip markers. They come in a cardboard box. Let me get a drink before we really get rolling here. They come in a little cardboard box that is very similar to the other Leisure Art products, though they are playing around with plastic ones. And I started to show you these, and I'm like, well, what good's that going to do? That's, unless they put the markers in those, it's not going to work. Anyway, cardboard box packaging. It says brush tip markers on the front. It's purple. I've already thrown mine away because I don't use the boxes to store these if I can help it. And it'll say Leisure Arts on the bottom of the box. You get 30 markers in this set. I found these at Ollie's this past weekend. It was $4 for the 30. And I thought, that's an interesting price. Let's get them and try them. And I'll be honest, I was not holding a lot of hope out for these, but I kind of dig them. So this is the color chart I've come up with. The markers have a clear top that is shaded with the color that the marker is supposed to be. I would say the color mat, or the marker itself, if you look, the color looks like it should coming out of the marker tip. So in this case, this is a red, and that's definitely a reddish looking tip. And I know that sounds obviously logical, but you would be surprised. Anyway, they have the clear cap, or slightly opaque cap with the color on it, and then there's a black barrel. These are thinner than a super tip. Hang on just a tick. This would have been good to get out earlier, Michelle. Alright. There we go. These are fairly thin markers. Let's look in comparison. They are, I'd say, slightly smaller in circumference. Is that right? Than a super tip. Not by much. I mean, it's honestly, well, it would help if I showed you this way. It's honestly a little too close to tell. The Crayola super tips are longer overall with the caps, but when you compare them side by side, the Leisure Arts actually have the bigger tip, which makes sense because they are indeed a brush tip. So let's compare brush tip to brush tip with Crayola. Can do. So here are those. This barrel, the Leisure Arts barrel, is slightly thicker than the Crayola brush tip barrel. Overall length, the Crayola is just a little bit longer. When you take the caps off, maybe. Crayola caps are really hard to get off. When you look at these, there, make sure they're level. The Leisure Arts brush tip is bigger overall than the Crayola one. The Crayola one is more of just a triangular pointed tip, and then the Leisure Art one gives you more of a rounded type of brush tip. And finally, comparing it to a Rose Art, just a regular, now these are water-based, is the reason I'm comparing them to water-based markers. Rose Art, you got a similar situation as you did with the super tip, similar in circumference, and the Rose Art cap is slightly longer. You bring the caps off to compare side to side. The Leisure Art brush is still longer overall. So a lot of the cap for the Crayola and Rose Art markers is kind of window dressing, so to speak. So biggest problem with these, there is no color name, there is no color number. It is also a black barrel. Now, listen. Coloring and art product manufacturers, please, please listen for a moment. If you happen to be watching my video in my little corner of the YouTube universe, when you are going to design a product, whether it be for kids, just for kids, or kids and adults, when you go to design a coloring product, please, 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 it can just be a number. I don't care. You could put 1 on a marker, 2 on a marker, and so forth, or colored pencils or whatever. Number them if you don't want to come up with color names. Color names are good too, but I will take any sort of designation that this marker is different from the rest of these, because even kids, first off, like to know what color they're using the color with, and what comes out of the marker doesn't always match what the marker looks like. And secondly, as an adult, if you want to use specific colors, you want to swatch. And trust me, I had to take, masking tape would be best for this with a permanent marker, but what I did is I used a pen and those little file folder labels that I cut. And of course, they didn't want to stick, so then I had to put regular tape around them. But what I did was I coated them myself and put the labels on here, and this was a major PITA, which is a pain in the, well, you know what, it's a little early to be pulling out the big words this morning, the heavy hitters, so to speak. But this is the thing, this was an absolute pain to do. I'm so glad there were only 30 of these, because I don't think I would have done it otherwise, and I really like using these, but I got tired of constantly having to scribble on paper, especially when you get colors that are so similar looking side by side like these two. So it's kind of necessary at times to do that. And just please consider just putting numbers on there. I don't know what the cost is of getting that stuff printed on there, but if you can't even do that, just make it a white barrel. I would much rather be able to draw on this with a Sharpie, with a white barrel and a black Sharpie, than anything else. I could use a paint pen, I could use probably like a silver marker or something, but something tells me that's going to rub off over time and it may not work quite as well. Well, let's test it out. Why don't we? So this is a Sharpie silver. Should say silver. Yep. So there's that. My shaky one. So let's sit and dry for a minute. But having to do this, having a silver marker's a whole lot different than trying to just having a black Sharpie. Sorry. Trying a Sharpie paint pen, actually. And that also let me draw on it. So we're going to put these to the side and let them dry a bit. And then we're going to see. So we're doing a little bit of a demo today as well. Who knew? Anyway, it's going to be really hard to write like 30 on these markers with those paint pens anyway. So anyway, this is, go ahead and move these to the side. You saw the colors. The pretty, pretty colors. Here is the swatch chart. We have a surprisingly good range of colors. Just a moment. We have just one like true yellow. You got an orangey yellow kind of in between. You got 3 oranges. This is kind of more of a burnt orange color. You got like an apricot color. There's about 7 different types of reds, varying from your like cherry type reds to your red violets and your pinks and such. You got 2 purples, a this purpley green color probably belonged more towards the green, but whatever. Anyway, you've got, I would say, 4 like true blue colors, and then 2 kind of bluish green. Then you've got 5 green ones, 2 grays, which was surprising, a brown, and a black. So a fairly good representation of colors, fairly typical for sets where you have a strong showing of reds and greens, a fair showing of blues, and then usually your other colors get the shaft. So that's kind of what happened here, though they do give a fair number of oranges for a 30 marker set. So, especially if you count the yellow orange kind of in the middle. So, and that apricot color was really nice too. There's no real like true skin tones, I would say, like fair skin tones. The apricot might give you a pinkish skin tone, but the burnt orange color, the brown, those could give you some really nice deep darker skin tone colors. So there is that to keep in mind. This was done on regular printer paper, and one other minor issue I have with these is sometimes the colors aren't really all that different. So for example, LAR 6 and LAR 7, if you look at them, and I believe that was the 2 that I marked. No, that's 7 and that's 8. Where's my 7? Anyway, well, maybe I'll find it. Maybe we'll be sitting here days later. Okay, well, don't know where the other one went for the moment. We'll go ahead and look at these blues. So LAB 4 and 5, if I can find these. There's 5 and there's 4. Hey, look at that. So when you look at the markers side by side, this cap does look slightly darker than this one, which matches how this is, but it is very hard to tell. Like, there is not much shade variation between these 2 colors at all. You would have been better served with a mid-tone blue like this, and then more like a navy blue here. You got this darker blue, but that's got more of a cooler look to it. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but this, I wouldn't call this a navy blue. So they would have been a little better served on some of these that are not that far apart to have made a slightly darker version or lighter version of the 2 colors. So that is like the minor gripe I have with them, besides the way the markers are labeled. So those are really the 2 biggest issues I have with them. But overall, like I said, a fairly decent amount of colors. Now, let's see if these have dried. Let's see if I can find them again. Okay, so let me see here. Alright, that's dried fairly well. Yep. If I really rub at it, though, work at it with my fingernail. Not that you're going to be doing that, but, you know, if these things are getting knocked around in a box a lot, they may start to chip off. The white's staying on there pretty good, even with rubbing on it. Can scratch it off with a nail. So yeah, you can use the paint marker and the silver metallic one for these, but unless you're using like a case for them, if you're like just putting them in a box or something and they get banged around with each other, it's going to probably chip off and wear off over time. Alright, so let's get to the actual demo part. I gave us a little lengthier demo this morning. I got 2 books from each category, and I figured that would be good to kind of give you a little more range of what we're looking at. I had one picked out in here. Why I didn't just link to it, I do not know. Let's go with the jellyfish. That'll work. Well, I can also knock the mic everywhere. That works too. So this is Animal Mandalas by Jade Summer. You've been seeing a lot of Jade Summer this go around. Oh, do I want this one? No, I wanted the snake one. And now I'm hitting the camera. This is what 5 a.m. Videos give you. Very unscripted review videos. And like I said, I normally wouldn't have done it at this time, but I was in a mood to go ahead and do this review, so I figured, hey, it's either this or trying to work. I don't want to work at 5 a.m., so let's just do this. We're 20 minutes in. Good gracious. Alright, so I'm going to look at my chart. I like the look of LAG3 for this next. So we're going to look for LAG3. There we go. So here's LAG3 in comparison to the actual color. The cap is lighter, and it's actually closer to the LAG2 cap color, which is a little more accurate in what has been put down on paper. So again, not 100% true to the color caps, but it's a rare find when you have that. So I would call that a typical experience at this point when it comes to coloring products. So if I had another beef with companies, I would ask they do a better job of that. But like I said, I'm not going to hold that against Leisure Arts because that's kind of the case for everybody. Alright, so these are brush tip water-based markers. So with a brush tip, I have found that you need to use a lighter hand. What I figured would happen with these when I started coloring with them was that they would just rip the paper to shreds. They'd be really dry. And the few books I've used them in, I haven't had that experience, but I have not tried them on this paper. And this is very rough paper. So I would not recommend using high-end markers for this because they will probably ruin your tips. But that goes with any marker that you do not want to have to replace quickly. Alright, let me zoom in a little. There we go. And we will get started. Okay. Now I'm probably going to go out of the line some. I don't use my brush tip water-based markers very much. So they are different to color with. And I would say that too for any sort of brush tip alcohol-based marker. They're just, you have to be a little more gentle with them. They can work to your advantage. Like this one is such a long tip that you can actually turn it on its side and use it for bigger areas and cover those areas quicker, which especially in books like this could come in handy if you're trying to avoid streaks. Now, what I will say from the start, but that I will hopefully be able to show you, is that I've had a lot of luck using these in small detail areas. This is where they shine, or in these little small areas. Because if you can take your time with them and make sure you go over them thoroughly so that they don't streak, then you can get some really good, solid, rich color from them. But you have to be able to kind of take your time with them. On paper like this, they will dry pretty quickly. So the bigger the area, the more likely you might get some streaking. And you might need to go back over it again. So just keep that in mind. But to be honest, I would say that of Crayons and Rose Arts as well, which are my two, the only brands of water-based marker I use other than these now. So might make his body a little different color. I don't know. And flicking, these are a lot easier to flick the ends. I learned something the other day, and at A Colorful Life was coloring a Jade Summer picture with alcohol markers, and I noticed, and she mentioned that she was flicking the ends of the markers to avoid it bleeding into the other line art as much, and I started trying to teach myself to do that. It's a lot easier to do with this type of marker. So let me do his belly a darker color. So to go along with LAG3, let's do LAG5. It's more of a green and not like a bluish green, which is not what I'm trying to do. So I've used these in 2 pictures so far, and I will show those once we get done here. One was in a Posh coloring book, and that was the very first one I used them in. Was itching to try them out, though, like I said, I was not convinced that it was a sound investment, but you know, it was on sale. But they were $4, and I think I've seen these at Walmart, but I've never actually tried them yet. I have the pencils to try, but I don't have the markers, so I figured a couple dollars off would be a good price. So, like I said, you do need to have a little bit of a lighter touch, at least in my experience with the brush tips, especially to salvage the tips as long as you can. Obviously, for the price these are, they are not sold to open stock. I will be checking here in a moment to see if they make any bigger sets. I don't think I saw them, at least not on Amazon, which I should have had all that info provided before I started the video, but, well, again, it's 5 a.m. My brain is not exactly snapping on point like it's supposed to be. And I am messy with markers. Alright, so we got that one. Now, what I want to do here, we're going to switch up, and we're going to color the branch using the brown that was in here. I believe this is it. Nope, that is burnt orange. It would have been nice to see like a mahogany type brown color. That would have been nice to at least give you another option, but alright, so we are going to go down with the branch probably to the point where it interconnects there. We'll see. We'll see how long this goes. And now, water-based markers can bleed through based on the type of paper. So as with anything else, I would recommend having a blotter page behind it, which I do have. Depending on the book, I've seen colored pencil cause ink to transfer from the pages behind it. So I try to do that with any type of medium that I use to color with, because it could happen even with just colored pencils. And I've heard people say that, and I was like, how? And then I colored in the Kirby Rosanna's books, and I figured out how. If the ink is easily smeared, it could, with pressure, be transferred onto the page next to it if you're pressing down on the page, the back of that one page. So I'm going to go back over it again just to give it a little bit darker color. But down below, I may just go ahead and go straight with the one layer just to kind of show you what it does. I was trying to pick a little bit wider, longer area to show how these work on a bigger area. So I am tilting it to the side a little bit. For me, I found this is how I get the most consistent color, is just basically practicing with it and getting into a mode where I can go side to side or in circles if I need to cover bigger areas quickly. And I can't do that now unless I angle the book, so we're just going to go back to how we were coloring before. And like I said, I'm just barely touching the marker to the paper. These are, in my opinion, very juicy markers for their price point. I anticipated these markers to just be dry and to just rip paper to shreds, especially this paper. So I had not tried them yet in Jade Summer, but yet they are doing fantastic. There are a couple markers that are a little drier than the others and some that are juicier than the others, but again, not going to hold that against the company because that is typical of any pack of markers. You buy enough markers or a manufacturer makes enough markers, no matter how good a quality control you have, some are just going to slip by you. So if I buy a pack of 30 markers, and I haven't come across a dry one, where I swatched them, none of them were dry. So, you know, out of 30 markers, that's good. I've had a couple end up dry on me in the 100 Crayola Super Tips one. So you do get a little bit of streaky when you put down just one layer over that kind of length, but you saw that's where the paper's soaking it up pretty quickly. So I'm not too surprised by that. What I would recommend with these is, as I say with a lot of markers, if you think there's going to be streaking, go over it with a lighter color if you can, and then when you go back over it with a second layer, that'll get you closer to where you want it to be. So I'm going to use some purples. We have just 2 purples, and I want the bluer purple color. So now, if you continuously go over and over and over the page, these are water-based, so they do wet the page, and if you run your finger over it, you can feel where the page has just buckled ever so slightly. Well, would help if I try to open the right side of the cap. I thought the caps were supposed to fit on like the ends of the markers, and they do for some, but for the others not so much, so I wouldn't call that a deal breaker for me personally, but it might be for somebody else, so figured it was worth mentioning. I'm trying to be more consistent with how I do reviews for stuff, because obviously if I'm doing a lot of different things with one set of markers, it's not going to be an accurate comparison side by side, which means at some point I probably will go back, and I am barely touching the paper right here, by the way. At one point I will go back and redo my coloring at any budget, the budget-friendly water-based markers video. And I'll probably just do more individual in-depth looks at like Crayola and Rose Art and such. I will put the video to that, or the link to that video in the description here, so you can kind of see the other brands in this kind of category and can compare them on that level as well. I have a spreadsheet I'm keeping all the review info in. I've not updated it for the last few, so I have to go back and fix that. Once I do, I will put the link to that. And I'll probably start keeping that in every description at the very bottom, so everyone can access that. The dark purple's doing very well. I'm not having to go back over it. This one is one of the, what I would say, refer to as a juicier marker. Now, in terms of length of time these last, I do not know. The barrels are going to be shorter overall, even though you have a bigger, you may have a bigger brush tip to work with, but that just means your overall barrel is shorter, so these may have slightly less ink in them than your Rose Arts and your Crayolas. But the barrels are similar in size to the Crayola brush tips, so it may come out similar. I guess I could theoretically take one of these apart, but I kind of like using them, and I don't want to have to. Well, first off, I have to figure out how to take them apart. These don't. I would basically probably have to pull the nib out with a pair of tweezers and do it that way. If I ever have one dry on me, I'll probably do that just to show. I'm going to use the darker color on the leaves. The darker green, that is. And these this must be a slightly drier marker. But if I take my time, I can still just use one layer. Like I said, these really shine in detail work because of the type of point that's on them. You can get into more detailed areas easily with them, and areas where you don't have to cover a lot of space, they really do well in. If you like using mandalas, or if you like coloring mandalas a lot, and you have little detailed spaces like this to get into, or patterns, these would be a great choice. The Crayolas, the super tips, are a great choice when you can get like 100 for $10 or whatever. But when they start getting up into the $15 range, I personally wouldn't buy them at that level. I like my super tips. I like them a lot. I kind of like my Rose Arts a little better, but they are also in a similar price point. And neither one of those have color names on them either. So the Crayola brush tips do have names on them, so I will give Crayola that. And their brush tips come in a set of, I think it was 25, and they can range from $10 to $15. So this would be very competitive against the Crayolas. I think if I could choose between the Crayola brush tips and these, I would probably choose these, especially since I already have them labeled. But if I had to continuously buy them, that would get to be pretty annoying. I'm going to have to get some masking tape to make that a little easier process. Anyway, got pretty good color out of that. I really like the purple and how that came out. So we'll put this off to the side so I can make a note of what I've used so I can try to be consistent on it later when I get in the mood to finish it. Unless I'm going to use it as a tester page. Alright, for something a little different, we have Fabulous Flowers by C.L. Aldrich. This is her newest book release. I have been working on a page in this book, and I thought it would be cool to add some marker to it. This is also Amazon printed paper, but to me it's a slightly different kind. I don't know if there's different versions to choose from, but this feels different than the Jake Summer books. So I've already filled in this part with colored pencil, and so what I'm going to do is work on the top and bottom leaves for the moment, and we're going to turn it on its side because it's going to be really hard for me to do this otherwise. Alright, so I need kind of a bluish, like a green-blue color, and I have that in LAG1. So dig, LAG1. Alright. I'm going with the blue-green just because of the cooler colors that I'm using in the pencils. And those are Crayola Blend and Shade pencils, by the way, that I used. I have a pretty busy day today, and tomorrow. I had to take a Not My Cat in to the vet on Sunday, and his name's Leroy. He actually hasn't, they all have names, but he showed up. He's been getting to the point, he was hanging out of the house almost exclusively, and then all of a sudden he started kind of wandering around a bit, and I wouldn't see him for a couple days here and there. Still kept his little house out there. I'd see him every couple of days. He'd show up, eat like it was going out of style, and then he'd disappear again. And I was a bit worried about him, but of course I was like, you know, he is an outdoor cat, and outdoor cats roam, especially when they haven't been neutered yet. And I had plans to take him in and get him neutered, but when he started disappearing on me, it was kind of hard to plan for that because it's like, I don't know when he's going to show back up. picture is still in the frame. Yeah. And so he showed up Sunday and he was limping on his back legs pretty good. He couldn't even put any weight on it. And I thought, I'm gonna have to call the emergency number, because if he disappears before I can get him to the vet on Monday, then who knows what shape he's going to be 2 or 3 days from now. I thought it was his paw, but it turned out to be he had an abscess going up in his thigh muscle, more than likely from a fight. So I took him in, and the vet took a look at him and said, we'll go ahead, and she gave him an antibiotic shot. She said, we'll keep him overnight. If he's not, because he was running a little bit of a fever, she said, if he's not running one tomorrow, we will go ahead and get him neutered and vaccinated and everything in one go. And I asked her to go ahead and test him for FIV and FELV because of what happened to Fleroy, and I figured he would have at least one, and because I figured that was something all the cats in the neighborhood probably have. And I was like, I just want to know, so if he starts showing signs, then I know why he's acting sick. And I'm not surprised like I was with Fleroy. And he's not going to be able to come in, guys. He is a very territorial cat. I think he will be to a point even when he's neutered. He's just a jerk to anything that's not human. And my cats already do not have a good relationship with him, because when they go to hang out on the porch during the summer, they just don't like him. I don't know why. They've never had an issue, really. Even with Fleroy, they didn't seem to have as much an issue with. So I don't know, but I can already tell, even if he's neutered and the introductions go slow like they did with Annie, he is going to be a different type of cat, and I think that's going to cause a lot more problems. So it is a tense piece as we have it. So, but he seems pretty content with his life outside. He seems happy. As long as he gets pets and food, I think he probably would be kind of miserable. He's so used to wandering and just being able to do what he wants to do. Now, that doesn't mean down the road I wouldn't look into getting an outdoor enclosure for him. I guess he's kind of my cat now, since I'm going to all this trouble. He's no longer in the not my cat category. And I'm still going to put him there, because I'm going to be stubborn about it till the very end. And so they called me yesterday, and I figured they were going to tell me he was positive, and that would have affected his vaccinations, because when I talked to the vet about it, we suspect that last time when I got Fleroy neutered and vaccinated, that he may have already been starting to get sick, and that kind of just accelerated the process. And so we would have just gave him like the bare minimum, like rabies or something, and that probably would have been it, just so his lifespan would extend a little bit. But they called me yesterday, he is negative for both. I was like, really? I said, well, let's go ahead and get him put back together. let's let him lose a few things and gain a few shots. And they were going to keep him overnight last night, so I've got to go today to get him. I'm sure he is ready to go. He does like people, though, and there was no bites involved. Bite, no biting. He was not happy about going into the carrier, but what cat is? I mean, I don't know many that are just complacent and will let you just set them in a carrier and zip it up and just happy with their lot in life. But once I scruffed him, he's very compliant when you scruff him. And we noticed that at the vet's office, when he would get a little wiggly, the moment you even petted the back of his neck, he would calm down a little bit. So very cool cat, very chill dude. But I think he'll be glad to get back to his normal stomping grounds. They are ear tipping him and microchipping him for me. I'm thinking about trying to get a breakaway collar for him, so if he does get snagged on something, it'll at least, he won't strangle himself with it. That's always been a huge concern, and that's if he'll even wear it. Some cats, man, they won't wear the collar or it'll cause a reaction. I've had both happen. That's why my cats don't wear collars, because they're stubborn. If you can get them wearing them when they're kittens, it's a little different, but he is most definitely not a kitten. That cat weighs 11 pounds. He is a big cat. He's the one that I had in the vlog video, the black and white one. He is a big boy, like, not fat. He's just a very tall, large-sized framed cat. If he came in the house, he'd be another Bagheera. He'd end up being like 25 pounds. Actually, before he started wandering, he was well on his way to being like the fattest outdoor cat there ever was, because he didn't hardly get out and move. But the weather was also a lot colder than it is now, too. So, anyway. So, I think everything went well. They never called me back. So, his pre-op blood work must have came back fine. And hopefully, he seemed to be, other than his leg, he seemed to be in pretty good shape for an outdoor cat. Completely outdoor cat. And, what was I going to say? The neutering, once the hormones get fully out of his system, the neutering should chill him out some, to where he's less likely to fight, and he won't wander around as much. So it sucks. I'd like to bring him in, I really would, but our cats went through a lot of changes over the past year, and even now there is still some territorial stuff that has to get worked out every now and then. And I don't want to throw another wrench into the works. And he's the type, I think, that would be like jealously affectionate. I already have enough of those. I don't need another one. Of course, I thought Annie was going to be a shy, quiet, passive cat, and she rules everything with her paw. So I guess I'm not the best judge of cat hierarchies and balance of power and all that, but I still, with him being a male cat, an older male cat, Oreo was older, and he was a male cat coming into this house, and it did not go well for him. He was very nervous. He, to this day, still gets picked on occasion, though he loves to, like, crawl into my lap all the time, so trust me, he's not being deprived or tormented all the time. For all I know, Leroy would have turned out like that, but I don't need another Oreo in the house like that. So, alright, so we did do one side of that. There is a little bit of streakiness when I first started out, but as I kept going along, it worked out a little better. The cap of these is a little weird. So if you can see inside, it's a smaller area for the actual brush, I guess to help prevent leakage and stuff, which is nice, but when you put the brush tips back into the caps, you have to be really careful with that so you don't run the risk of damaging the tip. Alright, so there is that one. And some of that fell. We'll go to mid-range pages. Is this the... No, it was the other one. Whimsical Escapes, I did a page in last night using these markers, and it turned out really good. I liked it quite a bit. I don't know why I grabbed this one. Okay, this will work. Similar type picture. This is Creative Elegant Escapes by Crayola. I think the images were from Hallmark specifically. Now, we are going to use one of the reds, I think. Yep. And there you go. These do really well in this book. This book was made for markers, in my opinion. It is a thicker, almost cardstocky kind of feeling paper. It feels fairly smooth. There's a little bit of roughness to it, but it's not bad at all. Definitely nowhere near the roughness of the Amazon printed paper. And as you can see, the marker is gliding even better over this. I'm barely having to touch it to the paper. I'm not getting a lot of bleeding with these markers, mostly just because, like I said, you want to use a lighter hand anyway to prolong the actual tips of these types of markers. You don't want to really press down and roughhouse them and end up damaging them a little bit. So they're just fun. I don't know. Like, if I just want to go in there and sit down on the couch and I want to color, but I want to drag a bunch of different stuff in there with me, this little set would be nice to pick up and just have to do pages like this while we're watching something on TV or whatever. Or this would be a good little set to bring with me if I was in a doctor's office or somewhere like that and I had like a little mini coloring book to take with me. This would be something quick I could use. They're small markers. They're pretty compact. I'm actually going to put them in one of my small little, probably one of my little 72 set cases. And I'll probably throw the Crayola brush tips in those too. I do keep my brush tips separate just because it was more efficient space-wise for me. So, let's see. Let's go with a yellow. The yellows are actually quite lovely. Okay. This is more of the yellow orange. I guess I could have used that on that other flower I was looking at. Now, what if I use just little circles? Because I know for some that's how they color best. And this is a lighter color. I'm not seeing a whole lot of streaking right now. There you go. Now for a lot of these, I would probably go over them again with another layer, just because I like a smoother look on them, but that's just me. So what did I use on the other one? I used lime green, I think. No, I used the LAG3. I didn't use the lime green. So we're going to use the limey kind of green here. Now this will take a little longer just because we're going through a few more books, but I think this is important because this gives people a wider range of papers and book types to see, depending on what you have and what you like to color in. This is pretty important information. It saves you some time from having to test it, or whether or not you want to actually go out and purchase the product. This kind of lets you see how it's going to do in the books you may already have. I would still recommend you do your own testing. Again, the manufacturing process could do a lot of different things to markers, and the batch I get may be a whole lot better than the batch you get, and I'd hate for someone to start coloring in their book assuming it would work fine and then it start like ripping the paper up. I haven't had a lot of paper damage with this at all unless I just start going over and over and over the colors again. So, really nice, bright, vibrant colors. They're not, I don't think any of them feel washed out to me. They're really good pops of color, and I will probably continue with this one today because I like where this is going. So we're going to put that one to the side. Oh, wait, actually, what other colors have we not tried? We haven't tried an orange. Let's try an orange. Oh, wait. That's like the burnt orange color. I didn't really want to use that one. This is kind of a brighter page, so let's make it, there's one little dot there, but I'm not. The super tips do really well in this paper too. I mean, they just glide just like these do. So if you like using these types of water-based markers, at first I couldn't understand why the, we'll go ahead and do that part too. I couldn't understand why the Crayola books were so much more expensive. But like this book has 80 images in it. And they're not super detailed, most of them, but I kind of like that. These are really good for just those days you just want to color and you don't want to think about it too much. Maybe you're trying some new techniques or something. Or you just want something to color like while you're watching TV or whatever. And I think these are good images for that kind of thing. I'm gonna have to go get a second cup of coffee, man. Now again, these are fairly juicy markers and they are causing the page to wave a little bit. So that's why I said be cautious about going over them again and again, because that might be where you start getting your paper damage. If you do need to go back over them again, it's usually better to wait and let it dry and then go back over it with a second layer. So actually we'll use the true yellow color on the inside of this one. And then move on to our final set. Honestly, I would probably consider this higher quality paper for markers at least, but we'll just call it middle grade paper. There's still a little bit of a roughness to it. So as you can see, I'm actually moving this more to the side to get a wider area covered, and that's nice. It's hard to do that with the super tips, and the Crayola brush tips, it's a super stiff brush, and I don't know, maybe I've gotten used to using those, so therefore I can use these, but who knows. Anyway, there is those. Oh, one thing I should have been showing. So this is on the Crayola page. As you can see, there is some bleed through happening. Definitely some ghosting. So, and like I said, this is not quite the cardstock, but certainly thicker than most paper I see. Put that up. We'll go to my page in Mer Kitties in Love. That was not the second set. That was the next to second set. Or this is. Okay. So this was the page I was working on using the Blick Studio markers last week. I went ahead and finished it out. This is Mer Kitties in Love by Deborah Muller. I do have that right. Yes. Thought I did. Not Blick Studio. Well, I used Blick Studio, but I also used the Shuttle Arts together with it to blend. And this is the end result of working on that. So you can see. Now we are going to work with a pink. We'll do the catnip box in pink, if I can get my swatch chart that I just knocked over. We'll do pink on that. We'll probably do pink for her bra, I guess, bikini top, and maybe for her ribbon too. So let's see. We will go with a full-on pink, so like LAR2 would be a good one. Yeah, don't stop this now, Michelle. You're already this far in. Alright, so LAR2. Do you have a, yeah, okay. Just making sure. Now, on this paper, it does look like it wants to kind of streak a little bit more. And this is going to be a wider area I'm covering. So more than likely, I will probably go back over it. But I'm trying to see what it will do if I just really go slow and try to do the one layer on it. It's not too bad. I'm trying to think if I've used water-based markers on this before. On the Zen Doodle Books. I can't remember if I have or not. It's, I'd say middle grade paper. It's probably a little rougher in texture than the Creative Haven, but it's nice thick paper. And these are one-sided too, so when it comes down to one-sided, I'm not really too worried about bleed through. It's more just, is it going to do damage to my markers? Is it a really big deal if it does damage to my markers? A little streaky, but not bad. Not bad at all. So. Wow, I'll get there one of these days. I try to use a light touch, kind of like you would with a paintbrush or one of those real brush pens. There. Like I said, it's not too bad. I've certainly had streakier ones before, so. Alright. And I think the little circles help with that as well. And I know the Zen Doodle Books are pretty popular as well, which is one of the reasons why I changed up from like Creative Haven, because I wanted to show some different books this time. That. And now her ribbon. Now, do they blend? That I do not know. We could, however, test it. Give me a moment. We could go to the next color up, the LAR3, and see what happens. What I would suspect is because of these types of markers, it's probably going to be pretty hard to blend them. But it doesn't hurt to try. At the very least, I'll probably get like a painted effect over this. Also, going over them a little bit lighter to me helps with lessening the paper damage. There. Because I am getting just a little bit of pilling after doing that. But obviously, if you're blending the markers, you really don't want to wait for them to dry. What probably would serve me best is I'm doing an initial layer of the light pink, because going over one layer and letting it dry and then going back over it seems to help. It doesn't seem to damage the paper further or anything. So can I get that? Oh, I set a little bit right there. There you go. I'm also moving it a little bit speedier on this one. So we're getting there. Okay. See, when you actually take your time, like I said, these are really good for the small detail work. if I were to color a page like this, I'd probably use like alcohol markers and then come in with these types of markers if I'm not using gel pens or anything to get a lot of the really detailed work. So. If you're going to try to blend, especially on this type of paper, I would recommend a very light touch. And I would say no more than, like I use the dark and I'm going back over it with the other color just a little. That's about as far as I would go, especially if you don't let the layer underneath fully dry like I didn't do. Because this will help lessen the damage to the paper. Can be done though. Gives a pretty, this combo gives a really nice kind of subtle effect. So I dig it. I dig it, yo. Being so quiet this morning. Not nearly enough coffee in my system. I've been weirdly just, I don't know, start of this week I've just been weirdly off for some reason. And I don't know why. I do have my exercise class tonight though. I was hoping to go and volunteer at the food bank today, but depending on when I need to go get Leroy, that may not happen. And depending on how I feel later this morning, because I haven't felt all that great the last few days. Not sure why. I think it's just mostly because I'm only getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. That's probably actually what it is. But anyway, you can blend with them. Just be careful, and it does give a really nice effect. So there is that. And finally, we're getting there. A lot of books. It's like this precarious balance, and then they're just all going to go flying. What was the page I was going to use in here? Oh, never mind. I know which one. I didn't show if it bled through. It does bleed through on the Zen Doodle paper as well. But because these are juicier markers, I am not surprised by that. So I was going to use just this little page here. This will probably become a marker tester page. This is Cats by Demoiselles. I think that's right. I don't know. It's been a long time. Okay. So here, we haven't used any blues, I don't think. And then use some of the grays too. Just grabbing a couple of them. That is more, kind of want to go with a cooler gray. If I can find it. Will be the next thing. Okay. I know it's over here. Here you are. Alright. Nope, cap's not going to go on there. This is my marker copy of this. I do have a colored pencil copy, so let me put my markers over here. This is one of those sized kind of like the Johanna Basford books, and the way my desk is set up, it's really kind of awkward for me. So this is kind of a light cool gray color. This is very smooth paper, by the way. Good thick paper, but it's also very smooth paper. This I would probably go back over again with it being a lighter color. Part of the reason it is wanting to streak a little. Plus, I know it sounds weird, but you almost have to practice with each type of paper and figure out what works, what type of method works well with it and what doesn't. So, and now for his head. Would help if I was in camera. If I don't quit clicking my mouse and risking closing out, that would be great. Hopefully it would at least save it. There we go. Doesn't look quite as bad as I thought it would. On this paper, I'm not staying in one area and doing the slow circles as much. Let's do a blue. Mm-hmm. Happens if I go back over it again. No. I wasn't as smooth on that second layer as I should have been, so yeah. Okay. Just make sure they actually belong to him. This page can be a little confusing. There we go. I'll go ahead and do a second layer on him. Whoops. Got a little shaky with it. I just use a really dark color above them. But yeah, that's just other than trying to be productive and not doing a very good job of it. Mostly just because I think my body's starting to give up in terms of sleep, and it's pretty frustrated at this point, refusing to do much. So it's kind of just like, oh well, too bad for you. Alright, not too bad. Finally, let's do a darker blue. And we'll do this above this kitty. It's funny, this is higher quality paper, but for me, it seems like it's not working as well on the higher quality paper, which is a little odd. You would think with a smoother surface, it would do better. So, who knows? Could easily be the way I'm trying to color with it. Alright, we're going to do a second layer on this one because I can tell already it's going to need it. Actually, I think the opposite happens with these markers. The darker colors are more obvious when they streak than the lighter ones. So, I do like this color blue though. Can't really see his face much, but that's alright. He's a cat. They're all sleeping. You know he's going to be sleeping. There's that. Worked pretty smooth when I went over it with a second layer, so just lost a lot of his features, but yeah, I would say on the smoother paper, and there is a little bit of damage, not a lot. It's not too bad. But anyway, these almost seem to perform on the rougher paper better than the smooth paper. Oh, I always forget this part. And I hit the camera. Sorry. There was a whoop. There was a little bit of bleed through right there. And I believe that's on the darkest color. So that's on that dark blue. The other colors I don't even see at all. So that's good. And finally, Lost Ocean by Johanna Basford. We are going to do the page with the different fish on it. If I can find it. There it is. Again, this will be a good tester page for different mediums. Find a page to put behind it. Since I took a risk and didn't do that for like the last couple pages for some reason. There we go. There we go. Clicking the mouse again. I like these books, but man, there is just something really awkward about this size book for me. Like I said, it's on the workspace I'm on. That must be it, but still, it's really annoying. Anyway. Go here and get. Now I consider Johanna Basford's books to be pretty high quality paper. Again, smoother paper. I still don't think this is quite as smooth as the cat's book, but it's a thicker paper as well, so. I think I'm going to go over the fins with a dark blue, so that'll probably cover most of that up. I'm going ahead and just adding in another layer because I know I'm going to need it. It's kind of a similar issue to the cat's book. Well, seems like they perform worse on the better quality paper than they do on the lower quality. So that's interesting. Did not expect that. I expect this will be similar to the cat's book, where in this area I'm having to go over a couple times. It will bleed through a little. On the lighter color areas, it probably won't. Right. Washed out a lot of the scales, but again, that's fine. We will go with a lighter blue, I think, for maybe. These caps can be hard to take off too if you're not using them very much. Go with a lighter blue for this part. obviously I'm being kind of messy too, which is probably not helping matters. Alright, let's see if it's bled through before we continue on. No, not even that part I went over with the purple. Oh, trying to see. I don't even see any ghosting. It would be roughly right here. Yeah. It would help if I pulled it over a little bit. There. Yep, nothing there. So that's good. So yeah, with the Johanna Basford paper, and like with any marker, if you just kept layering over and over, I'm pretty sure it would start showing through. But even with going over that purple quite a bit, like a little extra layer of sorts, it didn't cause any issues. So good news there. Seems like I have, again, having a little better luck with smaller detail areas. So if you have a higher quality book, you might be better served using these for detail work. And if you don't mind a little bit of streakiness, I would say larger areas are okay, but no matter how much you go over it on that initial layer, you may have some streaking. I mean, these are budget-friendly markers, so they're not super high quality markers, so you can push them to limits. I'm not saying these are going to be really expensive high quality markers, but you know, like I said, at some point, if they're budget friendly, you just have to kind of take them for what they are, but you can do a lot with them even in that respect. So I've been really drawing the blues and purples in my last few little pages. I don't know why. Anyway, he looks like a pretty happy little dude. With the smaller detail work, I'm happier than I am with the bigger areas with these. So these will give me another option besides fine liners and gel pens. And like the ultra fine points, especially because the ultra fine points would probably bleed through. So you would want something water based. But if we look on the page behind it, if I can bring it over and back the camera out a little, maybe. There we go. No ghosting, no bleed through at all. So if you're looking for a marker that you can use, like I said, for detail work or whatever in the Johanna Basford books, these would be good choices for that. So final thoughts on these markers. I like them. I think when I got them, I was not expecting a lot. They had the ultra fine liners too, and I was trying to debate between these and those, and I finally just was like, okay, well, I'm going to get the brush tip markers because I don't have very many sets of those. I only have the Crayola ones in the water base, so I figured I'd get home, they'd probably be really dry and rough textured and probably would rip paper to shreds and such, and that didn't happen. I have used them. Oh, other books I can show you that I've used them in. I can't show you the Whimsical Escapes because that would require walking into the other room and I don't want to wake my husband up. This is the Posh Coloring Book Inspired Garden, and I did this page. The purple and pink, with the exception of this part, are all Jelly Roll gel pens, and I just realized I still need to do the bodies on the butterflies. But those are all gel pens. The yellow flowers are gel pens, but the inside of those, the cat, the leaves, the other flowers, anything that's basically orange and this kind of pink and the greens are all these leisure art markers. And as you can see, there was a little bit of streakiness and lines showing up in the cat. I could have went back over it, but I don't mind those at all in this. So overall, and this was the one I was really testing them on. And when I saw how easy it was to actually put down the marker, I got curious, tried them in a Crayola book, and liked them so much, I said, well, I'm just going to go off the planned path, and we're going to talk about these markers today. These are, let me go online and tell you right now what these are, because cost-wise, because I don't want to tell you wrong. But at Ollie's, they were $4.99 for a pack of 30. If you have an Ollie's and you're interested in them, I would suggest going over there first to see if you could find them. The brush tip markers, a 30 pack on Amazon, is $6.99, and that does include Prime shipping. And then it's kind of a bluish purpley box. There's a purple box, but that's their ultra fine line markers. So let's try these. I'm looking on Walmart site too. It says 30 brush tip markers. It just says shipping not available, pickup not available. So these might be sold as at random Walmarts. Basically, there's not really a price on them. The prices I'm seeing are for their double-ended art markers, which I believe are going to be more alcohol-based. So that's probably why these are on sale, because they're probably making way for the double-ended markers instead. So, but like I said, for $4, honestly, these did a lot better than I thought they would. If you're just looking to try out some brush tip markers, or if you want to do like I suggested and you need a small pack of cheaper markers to take with you when you're running errands, if you have a little small coloring book like that Posh book or something that you want to color in, these would be a good solid choice. I would even go with these over the Crayola brush tips myself. Of course, now it's probably going to be hard to find them. Well, I say that, but the last time I got something like that at Ollie's, I thought was a closeout. They still sell those. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully this was helpful. This is something I've not seen a lot about, so I figured it was a good time to do a review on them. The biggest problems I have are the fact that it's no label, no number, and it's a black barrel, and that the caps don't always necessarily match the color that comes down. But again, that one's kind of minor. It to me, because that's why swatching is important, and that's something I've just basically come to expect at this point. So yeah, overall, I will be using these markers. I went to the trouble of swatching them, so y'all know I'm going to use them. Anyway, guys, hope y'all enjoyed, and bye for now.